to even fathom that. It's almost like a Mad Lib kind of describing what's been going on with Rashee Rice and the Kansas City Chiefs. But the silver lining, I guess you could say, is the knee injury. He was allowed to receive treatment at a local hospital in Dallas for that knee. It was a relatively minor surgery to clean up like some loose bodies that were inflaming it. So if everything does go as planned, and we're tracking the timeline of the week before he went into jail to serve out that 30-day sentence, the 2-month point would be putting him on track to be available, be ready for Chiefs training camp. This year it seems to be starting a little bit later. The 29th is the latest Chiefs training camp date that I can really remember as far as the kickoff point. So he has that working in his favor. He had the treatment while he was in jail working in his favor. So it's definitely a bad situation, don't get me wrong, but judging by the video, this is another part of the ad lib of him breaking into a jog as he's exiting the facility and getting into an SUV. He's moving okay, but that is definitely a far cry from being able to run, cut, jump in a classic Andy Reid training camp.
And of course, the Chiefs just finished up with OTAs over the last couple of weeks, and we saw a few different things. One of those, maybe one of the bigger storylines, is just how involved in the voluntary workouts that Patrick Mahomes was. I think that was a very encouraging sign. I think it leads many, including myself, to believe that the expectation should be Patrick Mahomes is behind center for the Kansas City Chiefs week 1. Do you share that sentiment, or is there something that you're seeing or hearing that may still need to be addressed as we get closer to the start of the season?
No, I think it's really more of the same. And if Patrick Mahomes is continuing along the path that he's shown so far in this rehab process, and you track it all the way back to, I think it was like December 14th or 15th that he sustained the ACL and LCL injury. You have more than enough time, and it's kind of been an interesting thing to see how it's been labeled, I guess you could say, online of, oh, he heals faster than anybody, and he's attacking it 1,000%, and he's superhuman and all that. That is true, don't get me wrong. He does come back from injuries quick. He is superhuman, insane in the best of ways as an athlete. But there's also enough time for him to come back. And if this was me or you, a random, let's say, average player, they'd go out there and say the same thing. Okay, well, this amount of time, you get your 8-9 months, and you hope that you're tracking for week 1. And I do believe that the quickness they acted with to get that surgery done the day after or 2 days after, as opposed to some athletes, and it may have been Malik Nabers, where there was some swelling and waited a little bit for that to come down. That turned into a few weeks. Now he could be starting on the PUP list and has had some complications. Micah Parsons has been a little bit iffy in his recovery, so Mahomes plays positions that allows him to get back out there a little bit quicker maybe. He hasn't had the complications and setbacks, and we always take for granted maybe that isn't always going to be the case. So all has gone well on the recovery front. He has been more involved than I thought he'd be at this point in the offseason, but I believe Andy Reid kind of framed it best, where the Chiefs are rewarding him a little bit for the hard work that he's put in, for the progress that he's made, the diligence he's attacked it with, but also they're being very smart, and they're not going to overload the face of the franchise, the face of the NFL, if they don't have to. So, again, all good news, definitely still cautious, but at this point I would be fairly surprised if he wasn't the week 1 starter for the Chiefs.
It seems like there was a much different atmosphere surrounding OTAs and so far the majority of the offseason and summer workouts for the Chiefs than we have been accustomed to over the last few years, and a lot of the reporting has been that a huge chunk of that can be attributed to the return of Eric Bieniemy, as well as the additions of DeMarco Murray and Chad O'Shea as running backs and wide receivers coach. What you saw and what you heard over the course of the last couple of weeks, is that something that is an accurate depiction of what we saw from OTAs? And how have the players and other coaches on this staff kind of reacted to this newfound sense of urgency and aggressiveness in attacking the 26-27 season?
Listen, Logan, we are about to find out whether it is the chicken or the egg. Is it, oh my goodness, the sky is falling, the middle of it all, and it's Andy Reid's fault, and the scheme is stale, and they need to make all these adjustments? Or was it some bad luck? Was it some injuries? Was it a suspension to Rashee Rice for part of the year? Was it an Xavier Worthy injury? Was it the just objectively bad personnel they had in the run game? Was it those things, or was it, okay, this is really getting to the end of the line in terms of what the Chiefs can they kind of get the juice? Is that squeeze still there with Andy Reid? I think that we're going to find out, because they've made so many changes around Reid on the offensive coaching staff, and Chad O'Shea having a more proven wide receivers coach, with all respect to Connor Embry. I think that this is good for the room. DeMarco Murray coming up to the NFL and having that experience there is going to be huge. The enemy factor, the Chiefs are leaning all the way into it. It seems that the players really do love him. Now, we can check back in a month and a half, and then when training camp is up and running, I'm sure there would be a couple different answers until that's over with. But the Chiefs had a longer offseason than they typically do. They're better rested than they typically are. The players had that mental edge back more than they always do. Reid, the same thing can be said for him. So I think a lot of people will tend to think that they're a little bit overrated, but the mental fatigue of having the run that they just had, the extended dominance they just had, the maybe getting a little bit high on their own supply of, okay, we think that we can get this all done with the players we have. Now, the wide receiver room is extremely thin ice. There is a world where that does kind of hold the team back at the end of the year, but we are going to find out whether this coaching staff, if it was an Andy Reid thing, if it was a surrounding talent thing, if it was fortunate, we'll get some answers. And I think that bringing the enemy back, bringing in Chad O'Shea, all of that is going to be beneficial to getting those answers.
So far, it appears that way, no doubt about it. And, looking at today, for some Chiefs fans, I think that there was some disappointing news that came out. Cam Jordan signing a one-year deal to go back to the New Orleans Saints. There was never anything overly definitive about this mutual interest that existed between the Chiefs and Cam Jordan and his camp, but, Chris Jones was vocal about it on social media. Cam Jordan himself even took to social media a few times, talking about different things with the Chiefs, excited about Travis Kelce's return, so on and so forth. But with this move ultimately kind of falling on its face for the Chiefs, I'm curious, is there any other names out there? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be an edge rusher that you think the Chiefs could try to attract before the season begins, to try to help with some added depth at a key position, like they were seemingly, reportedly trying to do by trying to bring Cam Jordan over from New Orleans?
You make a really good point, Logan, about where they could add some depth and competition and maybe even starter-level talent. They came into the 2026 NFL Draft needing a quality defensive end and a quality wide receiver. And they came out of the 2026 NFL Draft, and you can make the case they still need a quality defensive end, a quality wide receiver. Now, Ashton Gillotte seems very hyped up to potentially command that full-time starting role, or full-ish time starting role. Mason Thomas, he can probably factor in on some third downs. I'm sure that he's probably a year away from being like the fully materialized starting level player if he turns into one. But they are really, really, really not impressive at the edge group. That was even before the Mason Thomas pick. That's not going to completely save the group. So if you look at the free agent board, I think Joey Bosa is still out there. Maybe he's going to join up with his brother. Yetur Gross-Matos from the 49ers is out there. The corpse of Von Miller, I just don't think it's going to really help the Chiefs at this point. Names like Kyle Van Noy maybe jump out at you We can play the Jadeveon Clowney game again. It seems like that's been uttered for the Chiefs for years, but relatively slim pickings, and this is not to say that they should have brought back Mike Dana. It's not to say that they should have re-signed Charles Omenihu. They need upgrades over that, and Cam Jordan was kind of the perfect blend of veteran leadership, scheme fit, potential price point fit. It would be a one-year rental. It is a shame if the Chiefs were seriously in on that guy that he went back, but there are names out there, and it's not just the edge market. They can keep monitoring the Tyreek Hill thing. That seems to be everyone's flavor of the offseason right now. Stephon Diggs and his situation seems to be legally resolved, and he can objectively still help out. As a wide receiver, Keenan Allen, the Chiefs fans probably won't enjoy to hear that name because he's been a thorn in their side for so many years. But if he comes in and is your wide receiver 2.5, 3.5, whatever the case may be, the Chiefs can get help as soon as they need assistance. That's the issue is the longer you wait this offseason, the higher risk you run that a player of Cam Jordan's caliber ends up signing back with a team, and then you're left back to the drawing board.
Talk a week ago with the Chiefs was the re-signing of L'Jarius Sneed just 2 years after they traded him to Tennessee and he signed that massive deal with the Titans. What, in your view, is a realistic season for L'Jarius Sneed? What kind of impact can he have? Is it off the field? Is it more off the field in practice, trying to help some of the younger guys in these recent free agent acquisitions get accustomed to the way that teams are going over the years? What do you think he can have the biggest impact on the Chiefs this year?
I think it's got to be adding depth. Like if L'Jarius Sneed is playing 17 double-digit games in a premium capacity, and to say he can play, let's say, all 17 regular season games, and they get to the playoffs 1, 2, 3 more of those, and it's important in the world. And if he's that is a totally different story than L'Jarius Sneed being one of the 2 or 3 primary quarterbacks on the team. That would either mean that he turns back the clock in a major way, and the Chiefs would like rotations and thoughts, but it seems like the buzz has been Sneed more of a nickel prospect for them right now coming into training camp. I am definitely keeping an eye on where that goes because Kader Kohou coming off the injury, not super proven, but I do think probably has the inside track for it. Jason Kennedy that they picked up in the draft, the options there are legitimate. As long as Christian Fulton is on the team, I think the Chiefs have a handful of million reasons to be trying to get him on the field. He looked a lot better at the end of last season. So these things, and maybe to make the soft comparison, Logan, to let's say an outfield logjam for MLB teams when they're getting into spring training, and you say, okay, well, they have 6 guys and they only have 3 starting spots, or they have 5 guys that are legitimately. Oftentimes you'll see a guy get injured, you'll see one guy get dealt. These things probably have a way of sorting themselves out. But L'Jarius Sneed just couldn't really get going with the Titans. It was a couple years just filled with injuries, inconsistent play. He's not what he once was. The Chiefs willingly let him go because they thought that knee was in a bad spot. Those things probably don't improve over the course of time, so it's definitely going to sound like I'm down on the signing of L'Jarius Sneed, but on the contrary, it's low risk and maybe a respectable reward. So I think it's good business by Brett Veach. It didn't keep them from signing anybody else. It's kind of a break glass in case of emergency thing. John, you're trying to transform that quarterback room. They can definitely do worse than getting a guy like him, but the problem comes down to it's got to be realistic in terms of expectation.
Yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. If nothing else, he can be that guy that can help Monsoon Delane and James Kennedy and some of these young corners understand what it means to play the cornerback position or be a defensive back under Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt and what this Chiefs defense has become all about during the course of this Super Bowl run that they've been on for the last half decade plus. Jordan, appreciate you taking the time tonight, my man. Insightful as always. Hopefully we'll get some chances here as we get further and further into the off season to talk about what we all hope to be a resurgent year for the Chiefs in 26-27.
Yeah, sounds good.
There's nowhere I wouldn't go to help someone customize and save on car insurance with Liberty Mutual, even if it means sitting front row at a comedy show.
Hey, everybody, check out this guy in the third. What is this, your first date?
No, we don't need to customize things.
Into a bird.
Yeah, the third looks kind of your leg anyway.
Get a quote at libertymutual.com or with your local agent.
Ball's biggest names are chasing one of sports' most coveted titles, and you can trade the entire championship on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade the overall winner, every single round, or even select matchups between two different players. Maybe you like young like I do. Cam, with that $100 investment, could see a total of a return of $2,676. Or Scotty, the favorite, $100 investment could see a $671 return over on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house, and the probability changes. You can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time only, download the Kalshi app and use code TAP, T-A-P-P, to get $10 when you trade 10. K-A-L-S-H-I, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi. Regulatory.
You're ready to go, huh? Yeah, man. Definitely don't want. What do you think about the ring? I got my wife's at Hellsberg. I couldn't recommend a better jeweler.
I could use some help with that.
Man, go to Hellsberg. I had no idea how many details you need to consider. Did you know you can get a natural or lab-grown diamond? I didn't. Figure out what she wants. Trust me, they'll make it happen.
Start your story with Hellsberg. Shop in store or at hellsberg.com.